Welcome to an episode of Altitude Advantage. I am your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table from me, we have our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. The first week of OTAs is in the books. It was really exciting to see the guys out there. And, something about just seeing the Broncos on the field just, makes me feel good. That's why I'm wearing yellow, bright and shiny. So, it's a good day. I'm happy. Are you happy?
I'm wearing Broncos because I saw the Broncos. That was my thought process this morning.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, look, it's just OTAs, right? And there's no pads on, and like across the league, you see these overreactions to this pass looked like this, and this player has lost 10 pounds or gained 15 pounds. So I want to put everything in appropriate context. But that said, it is exciting because this is a team that we know had the talent to make the playoffs last year. They got better, right, in terms of, especially defensively, you added some big-name free agents, went out and got some good players in the draft, so they should get better. But you are starting from scratch. You've got to work your way back up. But we know the expectations externally are higher. Hope to see this team take the next step. They've talked about that themselves, and so it may just be, T-shirts and shorts right now. There may be no shoulder pads. There's no tackling. You're not going probably 100%. But it's still that first step, and I do think there's still some things to take away from it.
Yeah, I think when you look at just how the players are on the field, like the way that they're building that camaraderie, I feel like that was really important last season. And it was a really big focus point for all the guys of just building that trust, building that brotherhood, because that's who is going to get you through the losses, during the season and really kind of let you feel the wins when you get them. I thought the alumni being here was really cool. On our social, if you guys missed it, posted a lot of good photos there. Just the alumni coming back and talking to some of the young guys. It was kind of cool seeing like that full circle moment there too.
Yeah, and I think it was Carl Mecklenburg who tweeted that the way the Broncos practice stood out to him. And this is a guy, obviously, that had a lot of success here, Ring of Famer, has been to Super Bowls, right? Like, he knows what he's talking about from that standpoint. And so when the alumni can stand there and say, hey, we know that what a Sean Payton practice looks like, these guys are getting after it here in OTAs, that's a good sign to me, just because you can't fool players, right, especially ones as good as Carl Mecklenburg. And so that I thought was encouraging to see, not necessarily a surprise, but just at this time of year, and that'll be kind of a theme as we talk a little bit about Bo Nix of this time of year compared to last year at this time, or other teams around the league at this time. You hear of other teams are dropping passes, things look a little sloppy. That's not the case here in Denver, right? Like, Sean Payton knows how he wants to run this practice and is running it that way. So you start there as a baseline, and I think that's encouraging.
Yeah, I think what was really encouraging was just hearing from Bo Nix after practice. He seemed like in such a mellow state. He said that his mind is sharp. He's looking to take that into the season. But there's like a calmness from the guy that's no longer a rookie. He's not helping the other rookies coming in. But going into year two, after he talked to the media, I just felt like he had this sense of just confidence in his team, confidence in the young guys. And as you mentioned, it's really early. You can't really assess anything, but it was kind of nice to see Johnny Barron out there and RJ Harvey out there, just going out there and playing their game.
Yeah, and let's get back to Bo in just a second. I do want to talk about RJ because I think that was one of my takeaways from this practice was just they're using him, right? And this is a guy that you can see the vision, you can see the burst, you can see the acceleration. I mean, there's no pads on, and so it's hard to
give a full assessment.
Yeah, to judge a running back, and you can't figure out what does he look like in pass protection quite yet. But this is a guy that at least early looks the part, and certainly you'd think would have an opportunity to contribute early based on where the Broncos took him, the way they've talked about him so far. And so when I think about kind of what stood out from practice on Thursday, Harvey is definitely near the top of the list, if not at the top of the list. I think you continue to see these receivers develop. Sean Payton talked after practice about how last year Marvin Mims made this big jump. He expects to see Troy Franklin do that this year. There were some plays yesterday where Troy's wide open. I mean, he's racing by guys. And so that's against this caliber of a defense, that's exciting, right? And so excited to see, didn't necessarily like Bo Nix didn't look for him. There weren't these big, deep completions. But even if you're not looking for that guy, if you can stress the safeties and push the defense back, and then you take the 5-8 yard throw on first down, I mean, that's easy money. And I know that when we think about teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, for example, for so long you think about Mahomes taking these deep shots. But if you think about the other part of that, it's that it's so hard to stop the Chiefs in part because it's really easy for them to pick up 6-7 yards on first down and get these second and third manageables. And so I think Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, part of their impact is not just catching those deep 50, 60-yard passes, right? It's also making the defense honor that could happen at any moment. And now Bo can kind of pick apart the middle of the field, pick apart short, run after the catch, and it's kind of beneficial in that way too. So I would say R.J. Harvey, those guys on offense. Cortland Sutton had a really nice catch along the sideline, which stood out to me. And then, I think defensively, you can just tell that these guys are flying around. They know what they're doing. Yeah. And that's exciting as well.
Yeah, I think the run game was a really big focus point last season. And I believe Sean Payton had mentioned it, like you need to have a balanced offensive attack, right? You don't want Bo to be your leading rusher. You want to make sure that you have a balance where these guys can rotate and, like you said, get those crucial first downs and not have to worry about third and long and things like that. So seeing, RJ Harvey's speed, even just in the drills that obviously we posted on social, make sure you guys check out our Broncos socials for that, or just what you saw at practice. It's that agility for him to kind of switch, and him kind of have that jump start and be able to maneuver himself. So I thought that was really impressive. So after practice, Bo Nix did talk to the media. Let's take a listen to a little bit about what he had to say.
I feel good. I feel like I'm in a good spot. Body feels good, and mentally I'm sharp right now. So we're going to carry that into the season. Coach Payton and George, they put together a great squad for us this year, and so my job is to, when they get here, just make them a part of the team and help them with the transition. And I feel like all the new guys have really bought in, and they've been around. They've been getting to know everybody, and we got really good pickups this offseason. So I'm excited to see them play. It looks different out there right now. Just a few different key guys in different areas, but they're fun to watch play football. So that's gonna be good for us moving forward. But I feel like we had a great offseason, and we're building something that we look forward to seeing.
Even though Bo Nix is super mellow and calm, he kind of makes you want to run through a wall, knowing how confident he is in the squad that the Broncos have put on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I think we heard it both from Bo and Sean Payton. It's that things are entirely different this year than they were last year. And you think about what was this time like a year ago. Bo Nix is trying to get used to operating under center more than he did in college. He's trying to get used to delivering a play call in the huddle that's longer and more difficult than what he did in college. He's trying to, I assume to some degree, get back in football shape, right? Because you trained for the combine, and I think Sean Payton has talked about he was dealing with a little bit of something going into the draft. So you're getting back going, right? And then you're trying to learn a new city. You're trying to learn your teammates. You're in the middle of a quarterback competition to try to earn the job. And you're trying to prove yourself as a leader, which obviously he was able to do because he was a captain in year one, which I think in retrospect is super impressive that he was able to prove himself that fast to his teammates.
Agree.
But you don't have to do any of that this year, right? And you know what the defense is trying to do to you. And so instead of, I liked how he put it, instead of worrying about where's the motion coming from, what are the route concepts, where is this defender going to be, he can just take the snap, read, react, throw the right pass. And Sean Payton said where the ball is going, making the right decisions. It's entirely different than a year ago. And listen, you expect that to some degree. He played a full season. That's why you want to play as a rookie. If he didn't play last year, you're probably, I don't want to say you're in the same spot, but you don't have nearly that advantage that you do now. And so I then think about, okay, well, how good was he, especially the second half of last year when he didn't have that advantage of going into the same offense, all those sorts of things. Now he has that advantage. We hear quarterbacks, even veteran quarterbacks, talk about your second year in an offense, you just start to pick things up a little bit better. You start to be more comfortable. And so this is not the final version of where Bo's going to be going into his second year, but I think the starting point is so much further along that it just gives you this great baseline to start from, and I think should give a lot of people hope for what Bo can be this year. And then you couple that with the attitude of, he said he has a teammate in the locker room. He didn't say who it was, and I'd kind of interested to guess who it was. We don't need to do that on the podcast, but I've been like thinking about, okay, who was this? But that he has a teammate that says, we haven't done anything yet, and we got to prove ourselves, and we got to keep going. And listen, I think Bo did do something last year, right? Like he threw the second most touchdown passes by a rookie.
It's the fact that he thinks he didn't, though.
Right, but like he views it as, well, we didn't win a playoff game.
Yeah.
We didn't win a Super Bowl. We didn't win a division. Like we didn't do anything. And that is, I think, the right mindset to have, because if you just sit there and say, okay, well, we made the playoffs. I had a great rookie year. I threw, 31 touchdowns, I think. Like, okay, it's easy to then take that step back. When you have the mentality that he has of, I didn't really do anything that's worth anything, you're going to be driven to get better. And so they've added weapons. Obviously, we heard the value that Evan Ingram can provide in the red zone on third down. Having Cortland back, Mims and Franklin taking another step. You've got guys like Pat Bryant and Devon Vele. Trent Sherfield, obviously, in the offseason was an addition. So I think you've got the pieces around Bo. He's got the right mentality. He's got an advanced starting place compared to last year. All that, to me, feels like this perfect recipe for Bo making this jump in year 2.
Yeah, it's trusting the process and trusting, again, the philosophy that Sean Payton has instilled in this team. One of the things that he mentioned that really resonated with what Sean Payton said before, it's like, it's a new season, but you don't pick up where you left off. Like you can, like, developmentally, like, yes, you can strive to get better, but you're starting ideally from scratch. And then for him, he said during the offseason, obviously he did his arm care and things like that, but most importantly, he's like, I disconnected from football, was able to kind of clear my mind, and now that I'm back, it's like I feel sharp, I feel focused, I feel confident in our team, I feel good. And going into year 2, again, being the leader that he is, Talanoa Hufanga mentioned that he was very impressed with Bo, and he joked about it. He was like, that's nothing against Brock Purdy. He like joked, like, he's like, but Bo is my quarterback now. But he's like, but he was really impressed with just the way that he's been able to command, the team, the way that he addresses people. And one of the things that really stood out to me, again, not necessarily the X's and O's, but when Bo said, like, he appreciates the way the new guys have come in, bought in. He's like, they're around the facility, they're hanging out, we're connecting. Pat Bryant had mentioned in an interview that, they're hoping to go on a trip and to kind of like bond even more. And to have that coming in and having these young guys not focusing on like, well, I just got to worry about me, and I just have to worry about me getting a spot, and me. Everyone's buying into it's the team, not me. And I think that's really big for these young guys to come in and just pick that up so fast.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that stood out to me when you talk about what Talanoa Hufanga said about Bo was just his resilience, his ability to respond to adversity. I think when you think about how he played last year, there's this macro sense of, hey, the first 2 games were not pretty, right? Even week 4 against the Jets was not pretty. In part, it wasn't pretty for Aaron Rodgers either. Like in part, it was the weather. But there were moments early in the season that were a struggle, and then later in the year he was much, much better. Yeah. But then I also think there was this in-game ability to respond. I think about that Colts game, for example. Bo was not super sharp early in that game. I think he had 3 interceptions, if I remember correctly. And yet he found a way to play well late in the fourth quarter. They end up winning that game by 14 points, something like that. I mean, they ran away with it in the end. The Jonathan Taylor play helps, right? The yes. Nick Bonito pick 6 helps, but the Marvin Mims return helps. But Bo Nix did enough late to kind of help the Broncos put that away. I think of that game in Vegas where we know Bo took that big hit. Early on, the Broncos struggled a little bit. Can't remember if they were trailing at halftime or if they were just leading by a couple points, but it was close at halftime. Fourth quarter, Bo plays really well. I'm sure I could go and find a couple more examples here of in-game kind of starting off a little slow and finding a way to respond. That to me is big for a quarterback because there's going to be games like Atlanta, like Kansas City at the end of the year. I'm sure I'm missing a couple here where he played really well, but Carolina, where you're on it from the beginning, right? Yeah. And you throw 3 or 4 touchdowns and no picks, and it's an easy day at the office. Easy, right? Like you're putting a lot of work, but it looks easy.
He makes it look easy, yes.
And then there's going to be days where you're going to throw a pick or you're going to fall behind by 10 points, and it's like, can you figure out a way to get things going and not continue to let things kind of tumble in the wrong direction. And Bo, at least as a rookie, seemed like he had that ability. And so for that to stand out to a guy like Hufanga, I think means a great deal. And as you go into 2025, listen, you're going to play games where you play great, and you're going to have some that you struggle in. And your ability to, like we talk about, games you should win, games you could win, games that like you'd steal. I also think there's this bucket of, hey, there's some games.
You're adding a bucket?
Well, it's a different set of buckets. We have a set of buckets over here. We also have one over here. Over here, it's like there's some games you're going to come out and be on your A game. There's some games you're going to come out and you're not going to have it completely. Can you still win those games or win enough of those games when like you come out and you're just not in rhythm or like you're just a little bit off? And I think that I thought at least Bo found ways to win some of those games last year. You hope that continues in 2025. But his play last year was enough to convince certain guys. We heard Hufanga talk about, I wanted to come here in part because of what Bo did. RJ Harvey said he wanted to be drafted here because of Bo Nix. So that's impressive. And guys around the league know if you have the quarterback, you're good. And so they think they have that in Bo. And it led to getting some other really good pieces.
My intrigue was definitely just a great organization, first and foremost. People that are willing to buy in and to these guys, and they really want to grow. And this defense is incredible. Like you look from top to bottom, it's just players. And so for me, I just wanted to humbly come in, earn the respect, and join a crew that already did really well last year, for sure.
One thing that stood out about what Hufanga said as well is he mentioned like his experience. He's like, I've been to an NFC championship. I've been to a Super Bowl. He's like, I've dealt with injuries. I've done these things, and I look to hopefully bring some kind of guidance because he sees the Broncos going in that direction. So he's like, I hope to bring guidance and what's different about playoff game, what's different about the postseason that I can help these guys out. Obviously, he's joining a couple of guys that are former 49ers. Dre Greenlaw is also here with him. So he mentioned just like having this camaraderie. He's like, but I want to come in humbly and, just kind of make my mark here on my own. And I thought that was really good because he acknowledges that this defense is really, really good. And they had a really, really good year last year. And I think when you look at kind of the overall picture of what Hufanga wants to bring to the table, he's kind of just like, I want to fit in where I can to make this team better. And I think that that's a strong message for a defense that gelled really well together, set, obviously single most sacks in a season in franchise history. So I think when you're humbly kind of coming into that space, it was nice kind of seeing him go out there, talk to the guys, be around during the offseason. And then again, just like OTAs, like they're so hungry to be out there. I feel like they're so hungry to kind of put the pads on.
Yeah. And Sean Payton said you're not going to fully know what you have with Hufanga, Huff as he goes by until the pads go on. But this is a guy, could not seem like a nicer, more genuine person up on the podium. He talked about Dre Greenlaw the same way. And so you've got these guys that off the field seem like terrific people. And then on the field,
they're monsters.
They just like
they're just monsters.
They kind of like break your will as offensive players. But I think Hufanga's approach is interesting and the right one, similar to Bo's approach, right? And that's probably why Bo's work ethic stands out to Huff is that, you see a former first team All-Pro sign with the team, and you're like, okay, like if you're a guy on the roster, I'm intrigued, you've got my interest, but you're in there respect by how you come in and work, right? And so him talking about, I've got to prove myself all over again. It doesn't matter that I've been to Super Bowls. It doesn't matter that I've been to NFC championships. Like, I've got to prove myself again here. I really like, because he could come in and be like, yeah,
I'm that guy. Like,
I'm going to teach these guys what it's like.
Yep.
That's not his approach, and I think it's honestly a much better one to take the way he's going about it. And then on the field, I don't know that there's a guy I'm more excited to watch when pads come on and we get to real football than Talanoa Hufanga, because I think he is just going to fly around. He plays with such controlled violence and energy and passion, and it's like he could be anywhere on the field at any moment. He can come up and make a play at the line of scrimmage. He can make a play deep. I think that energy, that, again, controlled violence is just going to make a huge defense for this secondary, for this defense, help them take the next step. And I've always loved like a big hitter on defense. He feels like that guy to me. And so, I'm excited to see RJ Harvey get pads on. I'm excited to see, Troy Franklin take that next step. Obviously, I want to watch Bo and see what he does in year 2, but I feel like Hufanga is just going to hit the crap out of somebody at some point, and it's going to be so fun to watch.
And I'm going to post it on Twitter.
I am going to be so excited.
No, I mean, that's his style of play, again, is very exciting. I mean, just watching his highlights when he had first signed in free agency, you said it perfectly. It's the controlled violence of it all, and he has such an intensity, but as soon as they break, he's kind of like, all right, now I'm good. And then he goes back into that mode. But I think that's part of his power and his strength, is to be able to turn that on and off in order to make the plays that are necessary, obviously, during the game. And to see them out there in practice, again, was good to see. And also just it's the start of something fresh. And I remember when we were sitting here just a little bit over a year ago, before around the time of training camp, we were like, wonder what this team's going to look like. I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder what Bo's going to do. I wonder what this is going to do. And now, concern is not the right word, but it's we're more cautious. And I feel like this season is more the excitement of we know what we did last year. And yes, that's last year, but the mentality of this team to continue to push forward to reach the ultimate goal, I think should make Broncos country really excited about just the direction, the culture that's being built here, and the rookies that are being signed, buying in. And again, it's just the first week of OTAs, but I think you learned a lot just from this first week.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think for fans and for us, we should be excited and fired up about what this team can do. The team needs to have the approach that Bo and Huff have, because, this team made the playoffs last year. That was great. They exceeded all expectations externally. But they showed that when they got to the playoffs, they have a long way to go. And you've got all these teams like the Cincinnati Bengals.
They're getting better too.
Like the Dolphins, who dealt with injuries. The Colts were in the race. You would expect the Patriots probably to take a step in year 2 with Drake May. I mean, there's a lot of teams that want to be to kind of take that spot. And so, if you're not ascending, you're descending. And so I think that there's a balance here between hey, we want to take that next step and putting the work in to get it done. And that's why I like the attitude that Bo has. And I'm excited to see them keep working toward the season.
Yeah, and after practice, head coach Sean Payton also spoke about what he's seen from the rookies and his kind of thought process as they continue through OTAs.
Mentally, they're catching up, and then also physically getting acclimated to the weight program, conditioning level. They don't have to get there today. They just have to work their way there. So by the time we get going in training camp, we bridge the gap, if you will.
I think bridging the gap is the right word to say for Sean Payton. He talks about the rookies and kind of their development and understanding they have some time, and that's why right now you ease into it. They had weights and I think the way that they've set up this offseason program for the guys is really good, and I think it's going to lead to them having a very good, effective training camp.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild because we've only seen one practice, but we're almost done with the offseason program, right? You got another week of OTAs and then mini camps here, and it's then you break. And Sean Payton talked about you don't want to shrink that time between the offseason program and training camp too much, which is kind of the reason you have it set up this way. I think having a quarterback going into year 2, having the same offense, the same defense with a lot of the same players, it allows you to kind of look after the guys like that and be okay with that amount of practice time. But yeah, training camp will be here before you know it. You're going to need some of these rookies, whether it's RJ Harvey, obviously Jahdae Barron, Pat Bryant. I mean, you could continue on down the list here, but some of these guys are going to need to contribute in year 1. And it's interesting. Sean Payton talked about with the receivers, there's guys who won't be competing necessarily for spots on the team, but for roles and for targets. And so I think that extends to several places on the roster where maybe there aren't guys that are going to take each other's jobs, but they might take the snaps, or they might take, who gets to play on third down, or who gets to, who gets what carry, right? And so you mentioned everybody being for the team. I do still think you want some healthy competition as you go into training camp. As we get closer, I'm sure we'll preview all of those different battles that we'll have coming up, but I do think there's competition still there, and it may not be as much for roster spots as it is for okay, who's going to be the guy, or who gets to have this role or who gets 3 more carries or, so that still is going to bring out really good competition, and I'm excited to see it unfold.
Well, I think you said it best with Huff. It's like they can be nice guys, nice people, great people, but then they get on the field and those monsters all come out. I mean, they're here for a reason, and it's going to be really exciting to see how everything plays out. So we appreciate you guys listening to another episode of Altitude Advantage. Once again, I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table from me, we have our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla, is going to have all your coverage from OTAs, and then minicamp, and then training camp, and then 100 days until the season starts. Really exciting. So appreciate you guys listening. Make sure you guys comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we will see you next time.